Welcome to the CodePlay Culture Podcast, where we discuss tech, gaming, health, and the world around us.
Welcome to today's episode of CodePlay Culture, minimalism approaches to code, play, and culture. There are many ways to apply minimalist concepts to our lives. Coders and interface designers can apply these principles to promote user interaction, improve productivity and engagement, and even improve the physical reactions to the tools they develop. Today's episode is going to explore the coding impacts, while also exploring the impact minimalism can have in gaming, our environments, and more. What's going on, Logan?
It's just another beautiful day trying to minimize things that are not as important and maximize things that bring true value. That was a pretty good intro. When I say pretty good, I mean, it was awesome. It was amazing. Maybe my word choice was minimal when I should have given it maximal attention. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Speaking of minimal, we have minimal people here today. This is the first time we've had no Rui from Hobby Learning join our trio. So Rui, if you're listening, hopefully you join next week. And after that big application launch deployment stuff you got going on, and we hope you maximal success and minimal bugs. But
you're just loving the min-max comments, aren't you?
Min-max.
Maybe we should minimize the language used.
Minimize the themes.
Well, listen, I think we hop right into our top three. So in this segment here, why don't we each give three examples of applied minimalism that have had an impact on our lives? Do you want to start with one and we'll just bounce it back and forth?
Yes. So minimize in terms of coding, and it could be technological debt in general, like files, folders. Think of that all as code. But one thing that's really been impactful in my personal and professional life is minimizing code specifically. Now, in coding languages like C#, minimizing typically means that you're taking shortcuts, and it's not the most optimal code. But that's not what I'm saying. I've made it a passion of mine to write a lot of C# source code generators using Roslyn. And what it will allow is a single line of code automatically generates potentially 1,000 lines. Now that 1,000 lines is so highly performant and optimized and less technical debt. So I've written a single line, which automatically will unpack 1,000. So it's the most efficient, it's minimal, and the maximum performant. So
you're not necessarily saying these are libraries. This is just the actual creation of code.
It's libraries, but they're private libraries. They're not public. It's used to really accelerate clients.
You're not talking about like AI generated code. You're talking about actually creating your own private library.
Correct.
And then
exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine when you create a C# file, you have to have four methods. One is get the data. One is delete the data. One is update the data. Like four methods. They're all very similar. Maybe there are a couple spots it's changed, but that file is probably for different entities like customer, person, address, a lot of duplicate code everywhere in the world. Very similar files. So what this does is you make a class and then you put a little magic string on the top, and the code generator is watching to see if anyone puts those there, and then it will make all those other methods for you. If it doesn't work, you have to go back to your private library and then update it there. But it is code that writes code. Why send a human to do a robot's job?
Depends on what the robot wants to do with it.
Oh man, did you?
Well, speaking of robots and sci-fi nerdery, that's a great segue to one of my top three, which is actually a writing app called Scrivener. Scrivener's been around for a very long time, which at first blush, it's actually not minimalist. It looks, it's more. There's a really good iOS app there. I mean, I don't know about Android and Mac. I know there are options there, but I use the desktop PC version as well. So everything syncs through my Dropbox. So it has the data security features, which if you're writing a novel over the course of 1 to 2 or more years is really freaking important. But not just that, but it's got a really good way of at every step of the process, whether you're doing your research, you can have all that information within the app in its own section. You're writing your manuscript, the way it lays out the different chapters, you can get a high level view. Basically like index cards, like you see here. It actually like looked like index cards, like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. You can create sections in your document. So it doesn't matter if you're writing a short story or you're writing this giant 1,000-page manuscript or even a research paper. It's got tools. And then when you're actually doing the writing, you just go full screen mode and it's black with just your words. Really enables focus. It's very minimal. And it's been the way I've written the majority of my novels. And nice. I paid $20 for it one time 7 years ago. It's
Scrivener.
Scrivener. Scrivener. So highly recommend it. And again, I can write on the fly remotely if I needed to. Not that I use it too often, but it has the same just black screen text. So
nice. Yeah, it's interesting how maximizing something or going full screen like a video game where there's no like close button, like in Windows, is minimal, right? Because it sets focus single pointed, so it's minimal distractions, but you have to maximize the window. It's funny. It should be called minimize because it kind of minimizes everything else. It's kind of weird, but in Visual Studio Code, I think you use that as well, right? Like, probably one of the world's most popular. I think it is the world's most popular text.
But the customization options, like providing them in there for the user to determine what their optimal flow is, right? Like what's minimal to me might be very different from minimal to you. Actually, know what the hell they're doing in C#, right? Like I'm goofing around, I'm making a random number generator. Like I just want to stick with the code, but I might want the help menus and maybe a more like another screen with the libraries. I'm probably using two monitors to like, here's the Web3 HTML, whatever it is I'm looking at, right? Like, if I'm on a learning mode, I'm needing more resources. Whereas you're just like, all right, like write my one line, generate my 1,000 lines, check it, go.
Yeah.
So
it must be difficult for application developers to make an app that suits all types of focus and work styles. The one thing that comes to my mind is in Visual Studio 2022, it was a feature that that had a YouTube video on. They showed it. I think it's been around for a very long time, but you can save what windows are open and what menus per project, which is, think about that for a second. Imagine if it might be in Notion or Evernote, but imagine you opened a note and then the menus were completely different for each one of those notes because you've set a workflow, like look and feel, like you save it directly to the project as these are the things I need open.
Yeah, it's almost like a user interface template. Adobe does this with Photoshop and Illustrator too.
Okay.
I believe you can say, but you don't do it on a project level. I think you just do it as like, here's my graphic arts one, here's my hand drawing one, or something. And I don't know exactly what they call it and how it works. I haven't used that feature in quite a while. And with Creative Cloud, they're constantly iterating and updating, which is, I guess our top three are kind of just blending into our conversation. But like, I see this happening a lot now. Whenever these apps apply AI, it's now like they have to keep telling you every single time with an interrupt or a pop-up, like, hey, try this AI feature. You can do this with AI. Like, no, I want to turn that shit off. And you don't have the option in a lot of cases.
Yep.
So I think it's the app itself, but then also how it's interacting with the user can create a lot, what might be a minimal design, they might ruin just with pop-ups or something that's annoying that takes away from the focus.
Yes, the deep focus, like what's they call it? Isolated solitude, like no distractions. You have earplugs in and then headphones over your earplugs, like you're in a cave. And like to achieve that deep, there's a lot of YouTube videos right now on like deep flow or deep focus, because we're in a world that's becoming way more distracted than it was last year. And I think that trend will continue. Yeah. But yeah, my wife, she uses Notes, Apple Notes for her. She just puts a little checkbox beside, you can do that like bullet points. And that's works for her day, her to do. And then she just clears them. And, I showed her Notion and, there's a lot of different things you can add. There's a lot of, it's like, what is all this stuff? Sometimes people just want like, no offense, Grandma, I love you, but no, you know why you put a sticky note of your passwords on your laptop? monitor is because that's really minimal. That's really easy.
Yeah.
That's easy to understand. I feel like if we haven't made it that easy as application developers, that it's very, you don't need a manual to understand how to use this program, then we haven't done it right.
Yeah, no, and Notion is one of my top 3. Again, I've been using it. I probably bring it up every freaking episode, and not just this podcast, but my own.
Love it.
It's great though in the fact when you first start, you do have the blank page, and they just type / and then the options pop up. Like I said, aside from their AI nonsense, but that's a whole different rant. But again, you can customize your things. You can create templates, which you can then use, like almost like your line of code. Like, hey, I tend to create pages that have a business plan, or I have a template for podcast episodes, right? Where I can duplicate. Okay, now I'm talking episode 59. Here's the things. It's got all the usual bullet points I use, which I then convert into the episode notes. So there, it's nice when you have these blank slate sort of programs where you create the formats. You can move things around. You can have sub pages. If you want to keep it real clean, you can make it as complicated as you want. If you want to have fewer pages, right? More simplicity in terms of your folder structure, like you led the episode with. So, that's why I really gravitate towards programs like that, just because the amount of things that I do should probably be minimized, but
yes,
it's so diverse in what I do that having, I like having fewer applications that I use, period. I like minimizing the number of programs on my bottom bar more so than the options I have available to me.
I got into minimalism, and I'm not like a hardcore minimalist. You could think with your head conceptually what a hardcore minimalist could be. Yeah, exactly. So I got into it because of that. I love like that whole Marie Kondo. Yeah.
Yeah. This 4 billion copies, 6 million copies as of this printing, which was years ago. So
it's nice to go through
too, right?
Yeah. It's nice to go through each drawer and say, do I really love this pen? Like, no, I have a billion of them, so I'm going to throw out this one. If you don't bring it into the house, you don't have to manage it like inventory and like more money, more problems, or more things that break down. But it's not saying, I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket. Therefore, when things fail, everything fails. That's not the same. It's like having things that you love and that are reliable, and minimizing the minutia or periphery.
But don't hesitate to shy away from the why behind it, right? I think even Marie Kondo's book is a great example of that, where that thing could be a pamphlet, right? But she wants to go into the why behind it, the feelings, the emotions behind it. Like,
true.
But what's good about
too long.
But it's not too long. It's not too long. It's just like, it could be like the actual practical of like cleaning out your drawer, do these 5 things. Like it could be a 10-page pamphlet.
Yes.
But what's nice about it is she blends in like animism, right? Your clothes, your objects have a soul. Not soul.
Yes.
Just that concept of animism. She basically took a very complicated Eastern philosophical concept and applied it and got it into the heads of 6 million plus people. Mm-hmm. Some people glossed over and went right in one ear out the other. I guess in one eye and out the other would be the reading equivalent. Yeah. But it's still like people got exposed to that idea, but she gave the why behind her theories and added a depth to the book, which was actually very entertaining for someone who's steeped in Eastern philosophy. But it made a book out of it, and it's not minimal in the traditional sense. Even though it was a book about minimizing, right?
Yeah. I do love that part about how when you pick up something from your drawer and you're in the process of going through and evaluating whether it's your favorite, and you hold it in your hand and close your eyes. And I did do this because I feel like it's essential to the letting go process. And you basically say, if you're about to let it go, you're like, thank you for being there when I needed you. Thank you for, that one time that I, couldn't find a pen and you were there and it wrote right away and I didn't have to shake it, or you have an appreciation for things being there for you in your life. That maybe it was a special moment, special memory, and sentimental things are so difficult to let go. Those take much more, persistent contemplating. Oh, is it now the right time? Or,
well, there could be a catharsis with parting with ideas or objects, even software programs, right? Like, it was actually hard for me going back to the Notion example. I switched over from Trello, which I'd used for a decade, and still every once in a while I'm like, I miss Trello, but like I love Notion. I don't want two apps, right?
Yeah.
And there's a way to kind of shoehorn one into the other. Like, I want to keep it simple, but still it's like, you kind of have that longing, but like I can't go back, right? I just don't want to do the two apps. But
yeah, I love Trello's Kanban more than the Kanban in Notion, but I love Notion in general more than Trello. I think that's maybe the similar thing that you're dealing with, right? Or why you switched. It's
Trello is better if you're interfacing with a team for a specific project. So I had less of that going on in my current roles and responsibilities. But and again, there's nothing saying that 3 years from now the bee's knees might come out and be like, yeah, all right, I gotta switch over from Notion. And like there will be some melancholy considering the amount of years now and things that I've done in there. Mm-hmm. We have to think about the play, the code, the programs, the art we enjoy, the games we play, the role they play in our lives. So, minimalism is a way to really, it's a framework to have that conversation, right?
Yep. And I like how minimalism will, if used the way, at least I used it, you only really bring things into your life that are truly high quality value and worth your time. In video games, for example, there's like new games all the time, but do you really want to sink your teeth into that generic version of this game space number 6? Or do you want, there's something new, like whatever you equate your time value to, like there's so many good games to play. Let's say you had to pick one out of the top 10 of that came out in the last 6 months. Is minimalism really facilitates you bringing in high quality only to your time and awareness, which I love.
Yeah, you're treating it more as a well thought out decision than a buffet.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. I see people even in our local game store here. Shout out to Shore Gamers in Red Bank, New Jersey, but free ads all day. But there's players that like I just got into the Disney Lorcana game and like we're playing games and really into it. Next day the Star Wars game comes out and they just switched over completely. Like and then the next day another game comes out and they start playing that and they're dividing their time and attention between 4 or 5 different card games, which are all legitimately good in their own right. I'm like, I'm going to stick with the one because I don't have time or bandwidth, right? Like I'm choosing to say, well, my time is already limited for that task. My finances do have a finite limit, right? And what I can spend on pieces of cardboard with art on them. But, I'll stick with that one lane. And maybe I'm missing out on, Friday games, Magic or whatever, but it's fine. It's a choice that I've made.
What I did with
I see people that just like want to experience everything and like play every single game, but like they play every game one time. They don't understand the depth behind a game. Whereas, there's some games that I'll play hundreds of times and, I miss out on playing all the hot stuff and I might be behind by a few years, but.
Yeah. I'm the same with video. I'm the same exact way with video games where I can't have like 6 different ones on the go. I'm a single player gamer. So I like work through the story and I use it as a way of like, I fell in love with reading based on like video games that weren't narrated. And then I'm like, wow, this is just like my favorite book, but now I get to play as these characters. It's like pretty cool. And I said to myself, fine, this is what I'll do. I won't play 7 games at once, but if I have like a Nintendo Switch, an Xbox Series X, and a PS5 in a perfect world, I'll just put 1 disc into each or 1 cartridge and 2 discs. And then I just won't change the disc. And until I beat those ones, as soon as I get frustrated with like, God of War Ragnarok because I get my butt kicked, I'll flip over to whatever one on Xbox or, I feel like that's okay. But then there is a diminishing returns for, deep appreciation and focus for your craft or your media or your passion. If you split it between, oh, what do you do? Oh, I skateboard. Oh, what do you do? Well, I do basketball, baseball, golf, soccer. Yeah. I'm like, and I do it every other, like, fuck, pardon my French, but how could you ever give anything the attention that it deserves? It's a whole thing. If you have like 21 kids, how could you spend as much time as each kid wants with you? Right? 2. Yeah, I know exactly. We realized once we had 2 that we're like, I want to make sure that our kids don't get any less attention than they get now, and they get a perfect amount, right? If always feel like you can do more, but I don't want to feel like I can.
Oh, should we survey our kids and see if they actually say that?
Yeah.
Just
I know it's easier with work from home, because I do find that, there's like, I think in Statistics Canada, like divorce rate and suicide rate all time high due to people getting on each other's nerves. My dad was 9 to 5, 9 to 6, I don't know, 5 to 5 outside. I didn't almost see him, right? And then I'm home all the time. So my kids don't really remember a time that they couldn't smother me, and vice versa. So having a break, absence makes their heart grow fonder, is really good.
Minimal parenting, is that where we're headed now?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just look back and you're like, oh my God, they're doing good on their own. And I don't have to get involved and like helicopter parent and hover, right? That's when you know that it feels good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is something to that too, right? It's getting too involved in things that you don't have any control over. And listen, going back to the previous point, I mean, there is a place for trying different things, right? Even sports, you see, there's players that will develop other skill sets that they can then apply to their core sport. A lot of hockey players will play other sports for like baseball for hand-eye coordination. Or there's an advantage to having played multiple sports, not just like railroading one sport for everything you're doing, because you can get too specialized with that, and you could miss out on something that you find you fall in love with even more, right? There's a famous story of a Stanley Cup winning hockey player that was in college for football, broke his neck, healed, went to the hockey team, and like being to the NHL. Like I mean, these kind of stories are rare, but you don't want to just cut yourself off saying this is the one thing I can't have more than X things, right? So you got to find what works for you. And to your video game example, I do the same thing with books. I'll have an audio book and a physical book in some cases too, but I don't like having a lot on my bookshelf, or the to be read pile, hundreds of books. Sure. Like every book lover kind of has like the amount that they can read versus what they want to read, or just there's always
disproportionate. Yeah.
But sometimes having that filter system is great. Like, hey, I only do one thing at a time.
Yeah. Also, when you do multiple sports, it can enhance your physique and certain muscles that you're not developing with your core sport. Like skateboarding is very like leg, core, crouching, but like it does nothing for my chest and arms and shoulders. So like things like baseball, basketball, obviously weightlifting, build a better, but then you'll realize like all skateboarding and be like, wow, because I worked out my arms like 2 weeks ago, I can now do this trick better. Or like, it is weird. It is a full body sport, but I would say 90% of the load is like core and legs, right?
Yeah. You could augment with different, like yoga is probably a nice complement to something like skateboarding. It is for hockey and things like that. Probably most sports, but and that's the thing. Maybe bringing it back to some of the tools, like, or that, from a coding and playing standpoint, you can augment your core tools in different ways, right? I think you may have your IDE for Visual Studio, but you might augment that with GitHub, or these. You may have to use multiple different tools, but you want to. It's not just minimalism in the number of tools, but also your user flow.
Yes.
Right. Things like I think why we're seeing a lot of improvements in terms of productivity or time to information or data analytics is because now you can set up Zapier, automations, or you can make connections between programs. You don't have to manage, but you can utilize what's good about different tools to fit it together into a workflow that's minimal and more focused. Like you're putting more time into the work itself rather than all the different doohickeys, copying, pasting, making square pegs fit in round holes.
Yeah.
I'm curious your take on that. I mean, you're more of a coder than I am.
For sure. Like for social media posts, for example, I was like, okay, what's a lazy man's way of posting on Twitter? Right. I'm like, so I used if this, then that back in the day. And like Zapier now is more prevalent in terms of integrations and automations. But every time I think it still works now. I might have just, once in a while you want to go around to all these services that have access to your information and like delete your accounts because,
exactly.
Sometimes, door left open is a sneak attack, backdoor attack, right?
But anyway, your information gets stolen.
Yeah. I mean, like you don't want to just leave them out there and, I don't log in. We'll close it or just whatever. Anyways. So I post a YouTube video, and then it would just take the title and put a link directly into Twitter. And that was automatic. I didn't have to pay. It was just like, boom, because I don't,
Yeah, MailChimp does that for my newsletter. So the monthly newsletter goes out. Just like I click the button and say, here, I connected the one time. I don't go on Facebook ever, but at least like Creator Studios will have it. If you look at every post, it's just the last 5 or 6 monthly newsletters, right? There's not another post saying, my political views or anything like that. It's just, I want to keep that account active, right? Yeah. But I want the lazy man's out when it comes to marketing. I just want to focus on the content, much to my dismay sometimes. But
yeah, like you want one, chamber, and then you want when the bullet leaves the gun, it should go to 20 different platforms with the highest quality. What I found is when I use something like Hootsuite, that would, like when I upload a video or a photo, when it would multi-target different social media networks, it would degrade the quality significantly. So I said, okay, take the non-lazy man's approach and go around and post everything individually. But that's because of 4K 60 frames a second video that I needed to. It is very difficult to make sure that you have the most quality on every platform. And I put out a how-to video on how to get the maximum quality from a Instagram reel, or how to get the maximum. They're all different. Like the settings are different places. It's a nightmare. And you'll go naturally more viral or have more views. Not that it matters, but if your quality is superior, I noticed like on TikTok, for example, they've patched this, but you could literally make a video outside in the sun for anywhere from 19 seconds to 21 seconds. And you can say nothing as long as it's the latest iPhone, 4K, 60 frames a second, and the sun is out. It will do like 30 grand views. It could be about your shoes. It could be filming a trash bin. It didn't matter because their algorithm was saying majority of the kids that are posting have such crappy phones. So anything that's above this stellar level of quality in terms of brightness, saturation, resolution, file size will pop to the For You page and make it go mini viral. So like quality matters.
I'm trapped inside and not looking at the sun. So
yeah, it's all like bad, like dark photos of like, it's funny, but yeah. So I'm like, I want to have high quality. So unfortunately I'm like in that perfectionism trap. I'm like, I'll go around and post it, but I don't know, man. The diminishing returns on social media just, I don't know. Like, what's the point?
Don't get me started on that rant.
Yeah, for sure.
That will not be a minimalist podcast.
It'll be a maximal rant.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Cal Newport. That's his name, right?
Yeah.
I would say Carl, but he says like phones aren't the problem. Social media is. Just delete your social medias. Yeah. Like
my life got a lot more minimized, and like my stress level goes down.
So good.
All right. I don't get it to market my business. How? I mean, I actually just the latest episode of Mike Pack, Chris deals with it, episode 58. I actually took I did a monthly newsletter, like an 1,000 word essay, basically just on virality and what the price that I pay for not trying to engage with it, but what I gain from it. So I did go in depth in that if people are interested. I'm not just here to plug stuff, but I just did. I kind of keep this small by pointing people towards that. But you're right. I mean, it's just a lot of the people that are gatekeepers for popular media do care about your following and things like that. So if you're not trying to build an audience, it does make it harder. I think you're seeing a lot of artists in particular push back against that notion, no pun intended. But by just building their own websites and moving their content out of the algorithm mindset. And you're going to have slower adoption, but you're also going to have a more loyal following when you get there. There's no reason why our networks, and Cal talks a lot about this, like peer-to-peer, real true social networks, not on social networking sites, are I think a better, cleaner, more friendly internet, right? Yes. Why do I need to have 30,000 people seeing my stuff, right?
Yeah. Like you post a picture of your cat and then some troll's like, yo, your cat sucks. And then you're like, damn, I'm sad now. I need to go to my therapist. Like, what's the value in like that situation, right? Just kind of like juvenile, but like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and there's millions of people that are on this hedonistic trap of just whatever. Not hedonistic is not the right word, but you know what I mean, like
The scroll loop, or
no,
like
just
the scroll troll
getting
loop.
those little dopamine hits from every single little like or thumbs
Yeah,
up, or I get
for
bored
sure.
easily. So yeah, it's funny you talked about focus before. I used the analogy, used the example of like just the gun, right? And
Yep.
you talk if you ever hear like professional military snipers, right? And like some of the people that really have to focus in, like if your breathing is out of whack, like if your physiological state is not conducive to shooting, you are not going to hit your target. I think that's also true. It's like being minimal in terms of your environment as much as it is what you're actually doing within it. So
Yep.
if there's lots of noise in your environment you're trying to write, like for some people, that's great. Like I can get very productive writing in a coffee shop as long as I'm like, that's kind of where I'm tuned in, right?
Yep.
Other times I want like, if I'm writing, it's totally silent and there's a garbage truck outside, like it'll rock my rhythm.
Yep.
It could be your work environment. I think there's a why people are still doing open office floor plans. I don't understand because they're just not
For sure.
conducive.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different theories, and what works for A isn't going to work for B. But what do you find in terms of environmental minimalism and the impact it has on your work?
Yeah. Like, I say that two things. One thing I wasn't expecting, the one thing I wasn't expecting is if I'm in the same spot for more than 90 minutes, like Huberman talks about ultradian cycles, which are weaved into circadian cycles. And every 90 minutes, if you don't move to a different level of the video game or like area of the world, meaning that after 90 minutes, I'm at my desk, I'm going to go to a coffee shop. And then after 90 minutes there, I'm going to go to a different area, like a field in my car, roll down the windows and code. We're biologically programmed to go into death and self-preservation mode as opposed to growth if we're always in the same place. You hear that like metaphorical, I feel a bit stuck. Well, go to a different part of the video game, whatever this thing is, and you'll notice you'll get inspired. You talk to other people, or just a different point of view. That really helped me in terms of, I would just go into some area, listen to nature. There's no one around, right? Roll down the windows, have a coffee, just be coding. Close down, all social media. There's no communication that can come through, no Teams, no text messages, and you're just writing code. That's helped a lot.
No, nothing wrong with going dark. And sometimes I'll send you messages and I don't hear back for hours. And I know that's totally fine, and vice versa.
Yes,
but as for me, that in a very similar way, I just like natural light and nature. Right, my other, not where I'm recording right now. This is our standard office, but most of the time I'm working in my garage office, which it has got open windows. I just see my backyard and nature, and there's some sounds and annoying, and I got the train that I go blow past, but that just works for me. And you get variation within that environment, right? Sometimes it's cloudy, sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's bright and sunny and gorgeous like it is today.
Yep.
But even within the same view, you might have different. You might be in the same office, and if it's at later in the day when no one's there, it's very different than the middle of the day when everyone's bombing through the hallways.
For sure, the sun makes a big difference.
Yeah, but you work with that. You work with the rhythms of your environment too.
Yes, that's true. Like it's hard to plan for like optimal time management because right now, things are going to be different in 5 seconds. So like other people's needs or other things that come up. But there is something about, okay, I've taken care of everything I think I need to take care of. I'm going to shut down and go into like a deep focus isolation for like an hour. And then the level of work that 20 minutes in and you feel like you're still scatterbrained, like getting used to the hot tub water. You're like, oh, that burns. But then when you reach flow, you don't want to be interrupted because then you're going to have to go through that 20 minutes again to get back into flow. So I found it works really well like a doctor. Sometimes you're seeing patients, sometimes you're in surgery. And if you're a brain surgeon or just any surgeon, you kind of want to be in a flow.
Oh, yeah. No, context switching is just really punitive to whatever type of creative or, detail-oriented endeavor you're doing, for sure.
Yeah. minimizing context switches with applications or with whatever. Like this is
tasks.
good.
Like how much do you have on your plate? Minimizing that can have a direct impact on the quality of the work that you are doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is probably a good place to start landing the plane here. Just, keep this minimal in length.
Yeah.
Sorry. Now you got me do it. You started. I'm ending.
Yeah.
With
we
the
could probably,
puns.
see if we can make this the shortest podcast ever.
No.
Come
on.
Because
we haven't done our outro here, which is like, so Logan, what are you coding these days?
All right. So what am I coding these days so I finally finished the free replacement to the automatic background removal Python Microsoft Azure API, which means that instead of going to remove.bg, which everyone does to remove the background, there's going to be a free offering. And when it's free to go to remove.bg, but you have to pay for the full quality. So I built a service that gives you back the full quality. And not only can you remove the background, but you can pick any color you want to replace the background with. So I I think you might actually be able to do that on remove.bg, but really what sets it apart is the high quality for free.
Nice.
What about you?
On my side, within my company, we have a specific business process that uses an Excel tracker. It's just not very efficient. It doesn't give a lot of visibility. So what I'm working on now is using Airtable to provide a cloud-based solution for that tracker, which is obviously under secure password protection and everything like that. But just because it's going to empower interfaces not just internally but with the customer, and it's going to significantly reduce the amount of copying and pasting and reports and generation that has to happen when it can all be done through automation. So
I'm playing Alone in the Dark Remastered, and I never played the original Alone in the Dark, but man, do I love this. Okay, so like they changed all the Resident Evil games aren't like they were before, so it's hard to get like an OG feeling survival horror. But the cop guy from Stranger Things, I forget the actor's name.
Yeah.
So they put him as the main character of Alone in the Dark. So they're doing that a lot these days, where it's the voice and the 3D digitized likeness of. So it's not the same like protagonist as the old Alone in the Dark, right? It's like literally the guy from Stranger Things or whatever.
That's definitely there for marketing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And probably to get some funds and yeah.
Well, right? or getting a newer audience excited about it because it's someone that maybe identifies closer. Maybe the other one was modeled after a popular TV show actor in the 90s and we just don't remember. So Alone in the Dark was in the 90s, right?
Yeah, it was like it was like weird, like very like before, I think, or at the same time as PlayStation 1. So 90s.
Yeah, so Resident Evil era.
Yeah.
I think one.
Yeah. And then what about you?
So actually,
you said Disney and
Lorcana is a card game. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's not that's just kind of an ongoing thing. But no, actually, oddly enough, I was looking for one or two things I can put on the phone. Because my daughter's been getting into video games. I want to find things that are easily accessible, but aren't going to take up too much. And I don't load my phone with a lot of apps, but actually really enjoying Super Mario Run. I thought I was stupid just for a while. Like I liked it enough where I actually paid the $10 to get the full unlocked version.
That's good.
But it's minimal controls, but you're getting just a really awesome experience that feels a lot like Mario, all the usual stuff, but it actually introduces its own challenges. Like you're trying to find ways of interacting and doing the things you want to do with a very limited subset. So I thought it was a nice thing to mention here on this podcast. But.
Yes, the minimal controls, nail on the head. I loved, like, I wouldn't play like a non-Nintendo game on a non-Nintendo platform, but I loved that one.
Yeah,
because of you just hold down, run, and then move it to tap. It's like a single tap thing, right?
Yeah, but it's how you tap. Like even within that, you're starting to learn there's little tricks and different characters do different things. So
like gesture based.
With a very simple setup, they just accomplish a really fun and entertaining game with a lot of depth, which I think is a really tough trick to pull off. So late to the party on that one. And then what are you watching these days or culturing?
So I'm working my way through, I forget, it's a Guy Ritchie show on Netflix.
What's the name of that one?
So like, like from Snatch and Lock, Stock and Two Smoke and Barrel, but like this is, I think it's like just in your top 10 on Netflix, but it is so good. I forget the name of it, but if you go to Netflix right now, you'll see it at the top, but that's really good.
Really
and then
solid.
what I'm like, yeah, exactly. What's the name of it? It's like,
I watched it. I just clicked the button. It was really good. Very minimal description.
The Gentleman.
Okay.
There we go. The Gentleman. Yeah, pretty amazing. And then what am I culturing of? I'm really trying to cultivate more emotional intelligence lately. I find that on science, analytical thinking, I'm pretty good. I really want to start internally discovering how to cultivate more emotional intelligence and being like more in tune with like, okay, what does that feeling invoke in me? Being more connected in that way. I feel like I'll provide a better empathetic version of myself.
Yeah, reading the room, things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
What about you?
Yeah, for me, I just finished season 1 of Shogun, which a friend who was really into samurai stuff said was really cool. And I'm like, all right, I'm usually not into things that are that violent. But, a story well told doesn't really matter the genre, but that one was really well told.
What's that on?
Hulu in the US.
Okay.
I don't know. So, Disney Plus now and Hulu is all one big combined app, but 10 episodes. It's based off an old James Clavell novel.
Cool.
Very, famous samurai novel. So apparently it follows the books pretty well.
Nice.
Again, not having read the book, I wouldn't know for sure, but I'm just basing that what I've heard. But beautifully shot, cool story.
Nice.
Not overly gratuitous with the violence, but
perfect.
I think it's a lot like The Culture. Like when it's violent, it's violent.
Yes.
But there are a lot of quiet moments. Minimal in terms of the action on the screen, so it's all tied into the episode, right? But it has a lot of emotional depth and resonance. Like you really stay with the characters. You kind of see, what's kind of through their small facial expressions, which is, if it's very, having spent time working for a Japanese company and spending some time in Japan, like it feels very accurate even today. Like that, you kind of understand a little bit more of like maybe from a historical standpoint why their culture is the way it is today.
Yeah,
it's maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it was just an really entertaining show.
Nice,
worth a watch.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah. Okay, wicked.
So, like I said, maybe this is one of our shorter episodes. Obviously, Rui, we miss you. Come back soon. But anything else you want to add?
Like find the things in your life that are, that you could minimize, so you could, focus on the things that are much more important to you and that bring you more joy in your friends and family. It's great.
Yeah, and hey, listen. One thing we don't really do a lot of on the show. We'll start, from our audience. If you're listening, you have some ideas, thoughts you want to have. We're all for just open discussion here. As much as Logan and I love talking with each other and with Rui, we're trying to do a little bit more to get the audience engaged with the content that we're providing, the ideas that we're trying to banter back and forth. So you'll see more from us in the coming weeks and months from our Discord channel. If you want to join that, get on that server, and we'll have an open areas where we can have conversations about minimalism or our favorite video games, things like that, and really start building a community. So that's the direction we're trying to take this.
Yeah, and if you guys want to email any thoughts, suggestions, comments, we are info@codeplayculture.com. Thanks everyone for listening. Hope you found it was useful and impactful. And thank you very much, Chris.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good one, everybody.
See you guys next time.